There's a specific kind of man who learns the truth about trust the hard way, not because he's naive, not because he's soft, but because he was raised to assume that sincerity looks a certain way. Eye contact, a steady voice, a hand on your back when you speak. He was taught that kindness equals safety. That charm means care. That if someone acts like they value you, they probably do. But some people are exceptional actors. They wear compassion like a costume. They nod in all the right places, ask how your mum is doing, and speak in a tone that makes it sound like they see right into your soul, until the mask slips. And by the time you see the crack, your life is already entangled with theirs. Your money, your reputation, your sanity. All compromised. This video is about them. The 7 types of people you should never trust. Not because they're evil in a Hollywood villain kind of way, but because their deception is slow, soft, cunning. They bait your deepest instincts for connection, then use it to control you. The clever ones who don't lie to you. They lie near you and let you do the rest. And the worst part? You'll blame yourself for falling for it. So let's start by naming what most people miss. Because it's not the flashy betrayal that ruins lives. It's the subtle incongruence. That moment where someone talks about how respectful they are, but belittles a waitress. The guy who makes a point of showing up for his friends, but never actually listens when they speak. The woman who calls herself loyal, but needs to fast-track intimacy because her mask can't last more than a few weeks. These aren't quirks. They're tells. Early warning signs that the person in front of you is not who they claim to be. Keep listening, because I'm about to name all 7. Not with psychological jargon, with real-world personas, so you can recognize the trap before you're in it. And if you're already tangled up with one of these people, this might just give you the leverage to get out. We're wired from the very beginning to want to believe in people, especially the ones who show up with all the right signals, the warm smile, the reassuring tone, the stories about how much they've suffered, not in a way that demands sympathy, but just enough to make you want to heal something in them. We call this connection. We call it chemistry. But half the time, it's programming. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people are trained to trust appearances over patterns. If someone seems helpful or charismatic, or just familiar enough to your nervous system, they get a free pass. You'll rationalize the red flags. You'll tell yourself they're just under stress, or been hurt before, or mean well really. This is the invisible training. It happens in childhood, in school, in work, through religion, in relationships, in every system that teaches us that niceness equals goodness. And manipulators know it. That's why the most dangerous ones come wrapped in loyalty. They'll say they've got your back, while slowly twisting the knife. They present as noble, reliable, emotionally intelligent even. But their real goal isn't closeness, it's control. And the fastest way to gain control is to make you want to give it to them, not demand it, not take it, just charm it out of you. So they tick every box. They mirror your mannerisms. They pretend to share your values. They manufacture urgency, fast love, fast trust, fast loyalty, because deep down, they know their persona has an expiry date, and they need you to buy in before it rots. Let's name the first 2 types of people you should never trust. 1. The fast-track friend. This one wants your trust now, not next week, not next month. Now, because if you pause to actually observe them, you'll start to notice the inconsistencies. They move quick, intense connection, oversharing, early loyalty pacts. But they aren't bonding with you, they're branding you. marking you as theirs. This isn't friendship, it's acquisition. 2. The mirror mask. They don't have a personality, they have a performance. They mirror your energy, your interests, your beliefs, not because they share them, but because they want to sync with you. It feels like resonance, but it's actually mimicry. And the second your needs or values change, so will their loyalty. Keep listening, because the next type isn't charming. They're innocent. And that's exactly why you'll never see them coming. The third type is the most disarming, because they never raise their voice. They don't argue. They don't control you outright. Instead, they play the long game. They keep the peace, smile through the tension, say the right things, until, quietly, they reshape your world into something that only serves them. Let me introduce you to 3, the passive puppet master. They present as harmless, supportive, low maintenance, but underneath they are quietly orchestrating everything. You find yourself avoiding topics around them because it's not worth the drama. You downplay your own needs so they don't feel uncomfortable. You make the decisions, but somehow they always get what they want. Their weapon isn't aggression, it's guilt. And before long, you're living your life to keep them comfortable. That is not trust. That is conditioning. And here's the slow burn. You start losing yourself, piece by piece, not because they demanded anything, but because they suggested. They withdrew affection when you didn't comply. They played hurt when you didn't prioritize them. They used silence like a leash. So now, your decisions aren't based on your values. They're based on how to avoid disappointing someone who never actually said what they wanted, just made it clear when you got it wrong. You end up drained. Not from conflict, but from constantly managing the unspoken. You question whether you're the one being unfair. You start rehearsing conversations in your head before you have them. You apologize for things that weren't your fault. And still, they play the victim, the innocent one, the misunderstood angel who just wants everyone to get along, as long as it's on their terms. So here's the cost. It's not the betrayal that cuts deepest. It's the erosion of clarity, of confidence, of your ability to trust your own instincts. That's what these people target. Not your resources, not your reputation, your reality. Coming next, the one who doesn't need to mirror you, manipulate you, or guilt you, because they already believe they're above you. And if you don't see them coming, they'll flatten you without a flicker of guilt. Shall I take us into part 4, the mirror story? There was a man I worked with once, sharp suit, sharper tongue. He had built a reputation for being decisive, efficient, ruthless when needed. People respected him, feared him even, and every so often he'd talk about loyalty like it was the highest virtue, said he couldn't stand liars, couldn't tolerate betrayal. But the irony was brutal. Behind closed doors, he was the one lying, cheating, manipulating, the whole time. He was 4, the righteous predator, the kind of person who plays judge, jury, and executioner while doing the very things they condemn in others. They set themselves up as the moral authority in every room. They speak in black and white terms, right and wrong, loyalty and betrayal. But those rules, they only apply to you, not to them. They'll break every boundary they claim to stand for, and still look you dead in the eye and say they did nothing wrong. And the danger is you'll believe them because they speak with conviction. Their confidence makes your doubt feel small. You'll second-guess yourself, wondering if maybe you did misunderstand, overreact, twist things. They don't shout or slam doors. They assert, calmly, authoritatively, like they know something you don't. And if you challenge them, they'll either shame you for your lack of faith or punish you with silence and withdrawal. What made it worse in this case? The man I mentioned earlier, he trained others, coached them in leadership, values, performance. He was seen as a pillar of integrity, and it took me far too long to realize that what I was seeing wasn't leadership. It was leverage. He didn't want respect. He wanted control. He didn't lead with values. He used them like weapons. And the more you admire someone like that, the harder it is to admit the truth. Because if they turn out to be a fraud, what does that say about your judgment? That's how you get stuck, trapped in a performance that you can't afford to walk away from, not without admitting that the version of them you fell for never existed in the first place. Keep listening, because next up is the nicest person in the room. The one who never swears, never fights, never asks for anything, but always keeps score. Here's the catch with betrayal. It rarely comes from the loudest person in the room. It comes from the one who smiled the most, who played nice, who never raised their voice, never disagreed publicly, never got their hands dirty, the one who made you feel safe because they never seemed like a threat until you crossed them. Let me introduce 5. The silent scorekeeper. This person keeps tabs on everything, but they'll never tell you that. They'll show up when you're struggling, listen when you vent, act like your number one supporter. But every favour they offer comes with a silent ledger, a mental tally, a quiet expectation that one day you'll repay it, and not in kind, but in full submission. They don't explode, they erode. You'll start noticing it in little things, passive comments, delayed replies, subtle digs disguised as jokes. They'll start withholding, not obviously, but just enough that you question whether you've done something wrong. They want you off balance, always trying to earn back a closeness they've already retracted. And if you confront them, they'll act confused, hurt, tell you you're imagining things, then bring up every single time they were there for you, just to remind you what you owe. Here's the shift. They don't manipulate with charm. They manipulate with debt. They make you feel like you're the one who broke the bond, like their resentment is your fault. And the more loyal you are, the more guilty you'll feel, even when you've done nothing wrong. This kind of betrayal stings in a different way. Because you thought they were kind. You thought they were harmless. You thought you had nothing to prove, but they were never giving freely. They were investing, and now they want their return. In obedience, allegiance, silence. This is the moment people start to wake up. They realize trust doesn't just erode through conflict, it erodes through imbalance. When one person keeps offering peace, but it always comes at a price, and eventually you stop feeling safe, not because of what they've done, but because of what they're capable of doing if you stop playing along. Coming up next, the one who knows exactly who they are, hides nothing, and still destroys people because they've decided they simply don't care. This next one doesn't bother with masks. They don't need to. In fact, they'll often tell you exactly who they are, cruel, chaotic, untamed, and still manage to pull people into their orbit. Why? Because the truth, when delivered without shame, can sound a lot like confidence. And confidence, especially in a world full of pretenders, can be dangerously seductive. Here we meet 6, The proud destroyer. They don't fake empathy. They don't pretend to care. They'll say things like, "I hurt people when I'm bored," or "I always get what I want," and for some reason people still trust them, or worse, admire them. Because when someone wears their darkness with pride, it feels honest. And in a world full of liars, honesty, even of the brutal kind, becomes its own kind of power. This is where the dark triad psychology lands. Narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, but we're not in textbook land anymore. We're in real life, and in real life, the proud destroyer often operates in plain sight. They're not hiding in basements. They're running companies, influencing movements, leading cults or Instagram communities or global brands. Their charm isn't used to conceal their intent. It's used to justify it. I'm just being real. I can't help it if I'm intense. Some people are just too sensitive. And the worst part, their impact rarely looks like destruction at first. It looks like passion, conviction, power. They say what others won't, do what others fear. But once they're in, they destabilize everything. Relationships, teams, families. They test boundaries until you stop setting them. They push people until they break, and then call them weak for breaking. Neurologically, this hits our survival systems. We're drawn to strength, certainty, high status signals, and the proud destroyer sends them in waves. But what they're really doing is bypassing your rational brain and tapping straight into your fear and desire. You don't want to be on their bad side. So you appease, submit, justify. Until one day you realize you're building your life around not provoking them. And here's the truth. People like this don't care about being trusted. They care about being followed. They collect loyalty the way a general collects weapons. And if you're too close, too invested, too desperate to stay in their light, you won't even realize you've become a pawn until the damage is done. Coming next, the final and most dangerous type. Not because they lie, not because they hurt you, but because they never stop needing you, and you never stop rescuing them. By now, most people have someone in mind, a name, a face, maybe even a few. But there's one more type, the hardest to walk away from, because they're not aggressive, they're not manipulative in any obvious way. They don't want power, they want saving, and that's exactly what makes them dangerous. 7. The eternal victim. They always have a crisis, a heartbreak, a struggle. Life is always happening to them, and at first you feel compassionate. Of course you do. You step in, help, fix, because they seem lost, and you, being the decent human you are, want to help them find their way. But weeks go by, then months, years, and nothing changes, except you. You're more drained, more anxious, more responsible for a life that isn't yours. Here's the trap. They make you feel important, needed, like the one person who really gets them. But it's not trust they're offering, it's emotional dependency. They don't want to grow, they want to be carried. And every time you try to put them down gently, they break harder. So you end up staying longer, giving more, sacrificing deeper, just to avoid watching them fall apart. This dynamic is built on guilt. And if you have a savior complex, if you were raised to fix, to soothe, to earn love by being useful, this person will feel like destiny. But it's not destiny, it's depletion. Their power comes from your willingness to rescue, and they will subconsciously ensure that their life never improves, because if it did, they'd lose their grip on you. In psychology, we talk about codependent loops. One person rescues, the other regresses, again and again. But here's the practical reality. Trust can't grow where responsibility isn't shared. If someone refuses to help themselves, they are not your partner. They are your patient. And you are their crutch. And the longer you prop them up, the more they come to resent you for being stronger, for seeing clearly, for holding the mirror. So here's what to do with all of this. Audit your life, slowly, quietly. Look for the fast trackers, the mirroring performers, the guilt weavers, the predators dressed as prophets, the proud destroyers, the quiet debt collectors, and the forever helpless. Name them, not out loud, just to yourself. That's where it starts, recognition. Because the people you should never trust all have one thing in common. They are not interested in seeing you clearly, only in keeping themselves safe, worshipped, or rescued at your expense. Here's the truth no one wants to admit. The people you should never trust don't look evil. They look familiar. Because they often carry the same traits we were taught to admire. Charm, loyalty, vulnerability, passion, strength, struggle. But when those traits are weaponized, when they become strategies instead of sincerity, they cost you more than trust. They cost you yourself. So what do you do now? You don't become paranoid. You become precise. You learn to slow down. You learn to observe the gap between words and actions. You stop confusing performance with presence and pity with connection. You let go of the fantasy that if you just love someone hard enough, they'll stop hurting you. And most of all, you stop outsourcing your safety to other people's potential. Rebuilding your ability to trust starts with one decision: to stop negotiating with patterns you already understand. If someone shows you they cannot handle your truth, your power, your peace, you believe them. You stop editing yourself to maintain a bond that's already poisoned. Because the strongest version of you isn't just wise. He's ruthless with his boundaries. He's willing to be disliked. He's not afraid to walk alone if the only other option is being psychologically shackled to someone who never had the capacity to see him clearly. Trust isn't just about others. It's about you. Your judgment, your standards, your ability to walk away before you're ruined. So the next time someone comes into your life radiating intensity, empathy, or neediness, don't ask, do they like me? Ask, can they handle me? If the answer is no, don't make excuses. Don't negotiate. Don't wait to be wounded again just to confirm what you already know. You've got 7 faces of betrayal now. You've seen behind the masks. The only question left is this. Now that you can see clearly, will you actually act differently?